In a land where the rivers speak in riddles and the night carries secrets older than time itself, one story remains untold, a story the elders refuse to share, a tale so chilling that even the bravest hunters tighten their charms before venturing into the dark. Tonight, you will hear what they fear to say. Somewhere beyond the golden plains and beneath the endless sky, a single decision twisted fate itself, unleashing a force no one could contain. What happened on that fateful night? And why do the villagers still lock their doors at dusk, their eyes darting to the shadows? Listen carefully, for this is no ordinary tale. This is a warning. A lesson. A mystery that has never been solved. In the heart of Lagos, where the air pulsed with the energy of roaring okadas and the scent of roasting boli filled the streets, Amina Adewale navigated the bustling markets on her delivery bike, weaving past traders shouting in Yoruba, Igbo, and Hausa, each hawking their wares with animated gestures. The traffic was relentless, a symphony of impatient honking and frustrated shouts, but she had long learned to maneuver through the chaos with ease. At 27, she had lived a life of struggles, juggling odd jobs to support her younger siblings after their parents had passed. Being a delivery woman in a male-dominated industry was no easy feat, but Amina was determined to survive. That morning, as she sorted through the deliveries, her supervisor, Connor, a rotund man with a permanent frown, dumped a massive parcel onto her cart. "Amina, take this one to St. Matthew's Cathedral," he ordered, already turning away. "Oga Connor, abeg, this thing heavy." "Not only me dey here," she protested, wiping sweat from her brow. Connor grinned. "Because you sabi do things fast. Plus, not near your route." Huffing, she strapped the parcel onto her bike and set off, dodging reckless Kiki drivers as she made her way to the imposing white cathedral standing at the heart of Ikoyi. The moment she stepped into the compound, she noticed the grand decorations, elegant Ankara fabrics draped across golden chairs, floral arrangements towering over the guests, and the aroma of steaming jollof rice wafting from the catering section. A wedding. Please don't forget to subscribe to Ubuntu Folktales for more exciting videos. Hit the subscriber button below, share and drop a comment in the comment section. Thank you so much. As she struggled to unload the parcel, a regal-looking woman in an elaborate osook with matching gele approached, her brows furrowed. "Who are you, and why are you here?" she asked in a clipped tone. "I have a delivery for a Mr. Obinna Okafor," Amina responded, glancing at the invoice. The name alone sent murmurs rippling through the guest. Before she could get a response, a towering man in an immaculate agbada strode toward her, his dark eyes piercing. "Who sent you?" he demanded, his deep voice carrying authority. "You be Mr. Obinna?" she asked, adjusting the heavy parcel. He frowned. "Yes. But I didn't order anything." "Oga, no they do like this. Your name dey here," she insisted, tapping the label. More whispers surged among the guests, and just then, a younger woman rushed into the cathedral, gasping, "The bride. She is missing." A stunned silence fell over the room. Eyes darted toward Obinna, whose face remained unreadable, but his clenched fist betrayed his rising tension. Then, as if possessed by a sudden epiphany, his gaze settled on Amina. "You," he said abruptly. "You will be my bride." Amina choked on a laugh. "You dey craze. I just come deliver package." But before she could react, firm hands gripped her arms, dragging her forward. "Oga, leave me dear." "I no do," she screamed, but the guards held firm. And just like that, Amina Adewale, the delivery girl, was being led to the altar as the new bride of Lagos' most eligible billionaire. The crowd inside St. Matthew's Cathedral had never seen anything like it. The murmurs swelled into outright gasps as Amina Adewale, still in her dusty delivery uniform, was dragged toward the front of the church. Her heart pounded in her chest like the frantic drum beats of an Egungun festival. Her mind screamed for her to fight back, but the weight of the moment froze her limbs. The lavish decorations of the cathedral blurred in her vision, the shimmering gold fabric that lined the seats, the elegant floor arrangements, the massive chandelier that twinkled like Lagos Lagoon at night, all of it was surreal, too much, too fast. She was a delivery girl, she did not belong here. And yet, Obinna Okafor, Lagos' most eligible billionaire, stood before her, eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that sent a shiver down her spine. Obinna's decision had been made in a split second, but the reasoning was clear. His father's will was ironclad. If he was not married by midnight, everything would be handed over to his conniving uncle, Chief Nnamdi Okafor. He could not afford to lose what generations of his family had built. He had always known his wedding was a transaction rather than a love story, but he never imagined he would be left at the altar. Andrea, his supposed bride, had vanished without a trace, and whispers among the guests hinted at sabotage. He had no time to investigate. His mind worked with the precision of a business mogul. He needed a bride, and Amina was here. That was enough. Are you mad? Amina hissed, finally finding her voice. I just came to deliver a package. You think you can just marry me like that? Obinna's face remained impassive. You're the only option I have. If I don't marry today, I lose everything. Amina stared at him as if he had lost his mind. That's not my problem. Let me go. She turned to one of the guards, a stocky man with a thick Igbo accent. Brother, abeg, no let this man use me for ritual abeg. The man blinked in confusion, glancing at Obinna, who gave a slight nod. Immediately, the grip on her arms loosened. Obinna stepped closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. I will pay you. Amina's brows furrowed. What? $2 million. If you marry me and stay for 6 months, I will pay you $2 million. Amina's breath hitched. She had never seen that much money in her entire life. Her mother had struggled to raise her and her siblings in a cramped one-room apartment in Mushin. They had grown up eating gari without sugar, skipping school because of unpaid fees, and dodging landlords demanding overdue rent. $2 million was enough to change her life forever. But marry a stranger? She took a step back, shaking her head. No. Never. Not even for $10 million. Obinna's jaw tightened. He did not beg. He did not negotiate. Yet here he was, trying to convince a woman who earned less in a month than he spent on a single bottle of champagne. He clenched his fist. You don't understand. If I don't get married tonight, I lose everything. You marry me, we pretend for 6 months, and then you walk away richer than you ever imagined. Amina folded her arms. And if I say no? Obinna sighed, looking at his watch. Time was slipping away. He turned to his best man, Chuka, who had been watching the scene unfold in stunned silence. Get the priest. Now. Chuka hesitated. Obinna, are you sure? Now. The urgency in his voice sent Chuka sprinting toward the back rooms. Amina's pulse quickened as she realized what was happening. I didn't agree, she shouted, trying to back away, but Obinna caught her wrist. $5 million. Amina's mouth went dry. The room spun. She thought about her siblings. Her mother. The years of suffering. $5 million could move them to a mansion in Lekki. It could give them opportunities she had never dreamed of. But marriage? To a man who saw her as nothing more than a solution to his problem. Her silence stretched, and Obinna pressed forward. You don't have to love me. You don't have to do anything except stand there, say I do, and smile for the cameras. After 6 months, you sign the divorce papers and go. The priest arrived, looking confused but ready. The mamas in the crowd turned into outright chaos. Aunt Ngozi, Obinna's formidable aunt, stormed forward. What is the meaning of this? She demanded, glaring at Amina. Who is this girl? Obina's voice was firm. She is my bride. Aunt Ngozi's nostrils flared. A delivery girl. Are you mad? Do you know what people will say? Obina didn't waver. I don't care. Amina let out a shaky breath, looking up at him. His face was unreadable, his resolve unshaken. He was willing to defy his entire family, society, and tradition for this deal. Her throat was dry when she spoke. 10 million. Obina's eyes narrowed. What? If you want me to do this, I want $10 million. Obina studied her for a moment, then slowly nodded. Done. Amina turned to the priest. Let's get this over with. The wedding proceeded in a blur. The vows felt like a business transaction. The ring felt heavy on her finger. And when Obina kissed her, it was brief, emotionless, yet the entire church erupted in cheers as if they had witnessed a fairy tale. By the time they exited the cathedral, the city lights of Lagos twinkled in the distance, oblivious to the storm brewing within Amina's heart. She had just sold herself to a billionaire. The drive from St. Matthew's Cathedral to Obina Okafor's grand estate in Ikoyi felt like a surreal fever dream. Amina sat stiffly in the back of the black Rolls-Royce, her hands clenched into fists on her lap, the wedding ring feeling like a shackle on her finger. Obina sat beside her, his face impassive as ever, his posture relaxed, as if he had not just upended both their lives in a matter of minutes. Outside, the bright Lagos cityscape zipped past, the neon lights of Victoria Island blending into the dark waters of the lagoon. The roads were still buzzing with downforce and okadas, the usual symphony of Lagos chaos, but inside the car, there was nothing but suffocating silence. Amina's thoughts were a storm. How had she ended up here? She had woken up that morning expecting another routine day of deliveries, yet here she was, wearing an expensive wedding gown she had no choice in selecting, married to a man she barely knew, and about to enter a world that was as foreign to her as the Polisha estates of Banana Island. She thought about her mother and siblings. If she called them now and told them she was married to one of the richest men in Nigeria, they would think she was joking. She could already hear her mother's voice, Amina, stop playing. If you don't send that money for house rent today, don't come home. The thought made her chest tighten. Had she really done the right thing? Obina finally broke the silence. You should get used to the attention, he said, not looking at her. The moment we step out of this car, there will be cameras. The media will cover this marriage for months. Amina exhaled sharply. You should have told me that before dragging me to the altar. He glanced at her, a flicker of amusement in his otherwise unreadable face. You seem to negotiate well for someone being dragged. Amina shot him a glare but said nothing. He wasn't wrong. She had named her price and accepted the deal. Now, she had to live with it. When the car pulled up to the gates of the Okafor estate, Amina's breath hitched. She had seen houses like this in movies, but seeing it in real life was overwhelming. The mansion was colossal, a towering white structure with Grecian pillars, surrounded by well-manicured gardens with a fountain at the center. The gate opened automatically, and the car rolled onto the expansive driveway lined with imported palm trees. Uniformed security personnel stood at attention, their expression stoic. The front doors opened before they even stepped out, and a line of staff members stood in formation. At the front of the line was a petite woman in her late 40s, dressed in a sharply pressed Ankara gown, her glasses perched on the bridge of her nose. She had the air of someone who had managed a household for years. Welcome home, sir, she said in a crisp, professional tone. Then, she turned to Amina. And welcome, madam. Amina blinked. Madam. That was going to take some getting used to. Obina stepped out of the car first, buttoning his suit jacket, and extended a hand to Amina. She hesitated before taking it. As soon as she stepped onto the marble driveway, camera flashes exploded around them. The press had already gathered outside the gates, eager to capture the first images of the wedding of the century. Amina forced a smile, feeling like an imposter in her own skin. Inside, the house was even more extravagant than she had imagined. Marble floors gleamed under crystal chandeliers, walls adorned with priceless paintings, and large windows that overlooked the lagoon. It smelled like wealth, subtle, expensive, and unattainable. The housekeeper, whose name Amina learned was Madame Esther, led them to a grand dining hall where a lavish dinner had been prepared. Amina barely registered the gold-plated cutlery or the waitstaff as they poured imported wine into crystal glasses. Her appetite was non-existent, but she picked at the grilled fish on her plate, aware of Obina's watchful gaze. "This marriage isn't real," she blurted out suddenly, setting her fork down. "So don't expect me to act like a proper wife." Obina leaned back in his chair, swirling the wine in his glass. "I expect you to act like what you were paid to be, my wife. The world is watching, Amina. Play your role." Her jaw tightened. "And what if I don't?" A slow smirk curved his lips. "Then I'll make sure your life is very uncomfortable." Amina's fingers curled around her napkin. "You're unbelievable." He sipped his wine, unbothered. "And yet, you agreed to this." She hated that he was right. Hated even more that part of her was intrigued by him, despite everything. That night, she was shown to her bedroom, one of the many in the mansion. It was larger than her entire family's apartment in Mushin. The bed was king-sized, covered in silk sheets, and the walk-in closet was already filled with designer clothes in her size. She touched the fabrics hesitantly. Everything in this world was unfamiliar to her. Could she really survive 6 months in it? She heard a knock on the door. When she opened it, she found Obina standing there, his expression unreadable. "Tomorrow," he said, "we will have our first public appearance as husband and wife. Be ready." Then, without another word, he turned and walked away, leaving Amina staring after him, her heart pounding for reasons she couldn't understand. She had entered a world of wealth, power, and deception. And there was no turning back. The sun rose over Lagos, casting a golden glow over the Okafor estate as Amina stood on the balcony of her massive new bedroom, staring at the lush gardens below. Birds chirped melodiously in the distance, and the soft hum of waves crashing against the shore filled the air. It was beautiful, like something out of a fairy tale, but to her, it felt like a gilded cage. Today was the first day she would step out into society as Mrs. Amina Okafor, a name she had not yet accepted as her own. She had never cared for extravagant things, but today, the world expected her to play the role of a billionaire's wife, and Obina had made it clear that failure was not an option. A soft knock at her door made her turn. Madame Esther, the head housekeeper, entered, carrying a selection of outfits draped over her arm. "Good morning, madam. The car will be ready in an hour for your first official public appearance." Amina exhaled, crossing her arms. "What exactly am I supposed to be doing?" Madame Esther gave her a knowing smile. Smiling, waving, and looking expensive. "Your husband has arranged for the two of you to visit the Okafor Foundation's charity event. It's an annual gala to support education for underprivileged children." Amina's heart softened slightly at that. At least it wasn't just some pompous high society event. "All right," she said, glancing at the extravagant gowns before sighing. "Pick whatever makes me look like I belong." An hour later, she found herself sitting beside Obina in the back of yet another luxurious car, this time a Bentley, as they made their way to the venue. She stole a glance at him, noting how effortlessly he exuded power and control. Dressed in a perfectly tailored navy blue suit, he was the image of sophistication, but there was something cold about him, something unreadable. "Do I have to speak?" she asked, breaking the silence. Obinna barely glanced at her. Only if necessary. Smile when I smile. Laugh when I laugh. And don't embarrass me. Amina rolled her eyes but bit her tongue. It was pointless to argue with a man like him. The car pulled up to the grand ballroom of the Eco Hotel, where flashing lights and a sea of reporters awaited them. As soon as they stepped out, the cameras clicked wildly, eager to capture the billionaire and his mysterious new bride. Obinna placed a firm hand on her lower back, guiding her through the chaos with the confidence of a man born into this world. "Amina, over here," one reporter called. "Mrs. Okafor, how does it feel to marry into one of the wealthiest families in Nigeria?" another asked. Amina forced a smile, but before she could respond, Obinna spoke for her. "She's honored," he said smoothly, pulling her closer as the cameras flashed. "And she's already proven to be an asset to our family." Amina swallowed her retort. This wasn't a marriage, it was a performance. Inside, the ballroom was breathtaking, filled with Lagos elites draped in designer outfits, sipping on expensive champagne as soft jazz music played in the background. Amina tried not to feel out of place, but it was impossible to ignore the judgmental glances thrown her way. To them, she was an outsider, an imposter in their world of privilege. A shrill voice cut through the murmurs. "Oh, finally, the bride of the hour." Amina turned to see a stunning woman in a form-fitting emerald dress approaching them, her smile dripping with fake sweetness. "Chisholm," Obinna greeted, his voice unreadable. Amina instantly picked up on the tension between them. "Chisholm." She recognized the name from the tabloids. Obinna's longtime ex. The woman everyone had expected him to marry. Chisholm's gaze flickered to Amina, eyes filled with thinly veiled amusement. "You must be the lucky girl who caught Nigeria's most eligible bachelor." Amina lifted her chin. "And you must be the one who lost him." A small, stunned silence followed before Chisholm let out a melodic laugh. "Oh, she has fire. I like her." Obinna placed a hand on Amina's arm, a silent warning to behave. But Amina had never been one to back down from a fight, especially when she sensed a challenge. "Tell me," Chisholm continued, tilting her head. "How did you two meet?" Obinna spoke before Amina could. "It was fate." Amina fought the urge to roll her eyes. "It was business, not fate." The night dragged on with endless introductions and small talk. Amina played her role, smiling when required, pretending to be fascinated by conversations about stocks and luxury vacations. But her mind kept drifting to Obinna. The way he carried himself, the way he controlled every interaction, he was as much of an enigma to her as she was to this world. As they danced for the cameras, he leaned in, his breath warm against her ear. "You handled yourself well tonight." Amina smirked. "I always do." He pulled back slightly, searching her eyes. "You surprise me, Amina." She raised a brow. "Good. Keep guessing." For the first time, Obinna chuckled, a genuine, deep laugh that caught her off guard. Maybe, just maybe, this arrangement wasn't going to be as predictable as they both thought. The days blurred into weeks, and before Amina realized it, she was no longer just playing the role of Mrs. Amina Okafor, she was living it. Lagos society, the ever-watchful eyes of the press, and even the quiet halls of the Okafor mansion had settled into a rhythm around her presence. She had learned how to navigate this world of wealth and deception, but the one thing she had not prepared for was how much she had begun to crave something real in this sham of a marriage. The rules had been clear from the start: 6 months, $10 million, and then they would go their separate ways. But as she sat across from Obinna at yet another charity gala, watching him make effortless conversation with the city's most powerful men, she wondered if she was still willing to leave when the time came. The night air was thick with humidity as they returned home, the drive silent but charged with unspoken thoughts. Amina's heart pounded as she finally worked up the courage to speak. What happens after the 6 months? Obina's hand, which had been tapping rhythmically against his thigh, stilled. He turned to her, his expression unreadable. What do you mean? She exhaled, forcing herself to meet his gaze. I mean, do we just sign the papers and pretend none of this ever happened? His jaw tightened slightly, but he said nothing for a long moment. Finally, he let out a breath. That was the agreement, wasn't it? Amina felt something sharp twist in her chest. She wanted to argue, to ask if she was the only one who felt the shift between them. The way he looked at her differently now, the way his hand lingered just a second longer whenever he touched her. But instead, she swallowed her emotions and turned away, watching the city lights blur past. That night, she lay awake in the massive bed that she had once insisted on sleeping in alone. Obina was just down the hall, yet he felt miles away. And for the first time, she hated the distance between them. The next morning, the Okafor estate was buzzing with energy. Madame Esther had mentioned a guest arriving, but Amina had paid little attention, until she saw who it was. Standing in the grand foyer, her arms crossed, was Chisholm. Amina's stomach tightened. What are you doing here? Chisholm smirked. I should be asking you that. Obina entered just then, his expression darkening at the sight of his ex. What do you want, Chisholm? She pouted, stepping closer. I came to remind you of what we had. Of what you walked away from. Amina's breath hitched, but she refused to look away. Obina's hands curled into fist at his sides. That chapter is closed. Chisholm's gaze flickered to Amina. Is it? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you married a woman you barely knew just to keep your father's fortune. That doesn't sound like closure to me. Silence stretched between them. Amina's heart pounded in her chest, waiting for Obina to say something, anything, that would prove Chisholm wrong. Finally, he spoke. I don't owe you an explanation. Chisholm let out a humorless laugh. Of course you don't. She turned to Amina, her eyes gleaming. Enjoy your borrowed time. As the door shut behind her, Amina felt like she had been punched in the gut. Because no matter how much she wanted to deny it, Chisholm was right. She was living on borrowed time. The 6-month deadline loomed closer, and every passing day felt like a countdown to something Amina wasn't ready for. The walls she had built around herself were crumbling, and she wasn't sure how much longer she could pretend. Then, one evening, as she sat by the lagoon watching the sunset, Obina joined her. For a long time, they said nothing. Then he spoke. Do you regret it? She turned to him, surprised. Regret what? This. Us. Amina's throat tightened. Do you? Obina didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, his touch lingering. I don't know anymore. Her heart raced. This was the closest he had ever come to admitting that things had changed between them. That this wasn't just a contract anymore. She took a deep breath, summoning every ounce of courage she had. Obina, Before she could finish, the sound of a car screeching to a stop in the driveway interrupted them. Moments later, one of the guards rushed in, his face pale. Sir, we have a problem. Obina stood, instantly alert. What is it? The guard hesitated before answering. It's your uncle, Chief Namdi. He's challenging your marriage in court. He claims it was fraudulent and that he has evidence. Amina felt the blood drain from her face. The agreement, the contract, everything, they had been careful. How could Chief Namdi have proof? Obina's expression hardened. Tell him I'll deal with him myself. As the guard left, Amina turned to Obina. What does this mean for us? Obina's jaw was clenched. It means we fight. But Amina couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. That what they had built, real or not, was about to be tested in ways neither of them could have imagined. And for the first time since this all began, she wasn't sure if love would be enough to win. Thank you for watching. Did the story remind you of anyone? Please hit the subscribe button, share this story with someone, like the video and tell me about your thoughts in the comment section.